Okay, good morning, everybody. Thanks for coming in such a rainy day. We chose to do it outside, not to miss the great setting behind us. Before I start, I want to thank Yair here, Zivan, and the staff of Mr. Lipid for arranging it. I want to thank JPC staff, Linda Rifkin here, Raya here, and our interns. You all received the CV, so I give you a concise one. Member of the Knesset, Lipid is the founder and chairperson of Cetid, Israel's largest centrist party. He served as finance minister, member of the political security cabinet, and in the 2015 elections, Cetid secured 11 seats, as you know. He served in the Knesset Foreign Affairs and Defense Committee, and before that he was a television anchor and personality and journalist, also a writer, I believe 11 books. And we are looking for your memoirs, which probably will be very, very interesting. And he lives in Tel Aviv with his wife Lihi and 3 children. Mr. Lipid, thanks for coming, and the floor is yours. What we do usually is like 10-15 minutes talk and then Q&A. I'll moderate.
Thank you. Thank you and good morning. These are not easy days for a country. We are under attack, an ongoing terror wave of stabbing and ramming with cars by Palestinians. Just this week, a mother of 6 was killed in her home while protecting a young daughter. The day after, Michael Fruman, the wife of a very dear friend of mine, was stabbed in a shop as she was buying shoes for her daughter. She's 5 months pregnant. She saw a young man, went to ask him if he needs any help, and he pulled out a knife, stabbed her. What kind of people do that? What kind of people try to kill a pregnant woman who have done them no harm? Surviving in this hostile neighborhood is an achievement. Building a flourishing economy, a vibrant democracy, and a strong society is miraculous. Israel is a miracle, and we can never take it for granted. But it can also be better. Our society can be stronger. We have potential that is still untapped, and we have major challenges which we need to do a better job dealing with. At the next election, I'll be running for Prime Minister, and we'll ask the Israeli public for their support. We will offer a way forward for a better Israel. We will campaign as a strong political center that loves this country and have a vision for solving the Israeli-Arab conflict, a vision for strengthening Israeli society, a vision for repairing our international standing. I want to highlight 3 key issues before we go to questions: Iran, a regional initiative, and Israel's international relations. The first, looking at the faces you all covered, after the signing of the JCPOA, we need to reassess our approach to Iran. We've said what we think about the deal, but there is another problem. The international community acts like this deal has made everything else in Iran is doing kosher. Nothing is further from the truth. There is no evidence to suggest Iran is moderating. It still crushes dissidents, arrests journalists, hangs gay people from telephone poles, suppress women. And most concerning from our perspective is it is still the leading global sponsor of terrorism. Secretary of State John Kerry said himself last week that some of the sanctions relief will go to funding terrorism. For us, this is not theoretical. This money will translate itself to rockets aimed at our children. So I want to say something that I hope you will all remember. The next conflict in the north or in the south of Israel is just a matter of time. As we sit here, there are around or approximately 1,000 people digging terror tunnels in Gaza, some of them under the border and into Israel. In Lebanon, Hezbollah has more than 100,000 rockets aimed at us, and terrorists with combat experience who will return home from Syria ready to fight. So the next conflict is just a matter of time, and when it happens, the world will look and ask, why? So remember this: the provocations, the breaches of international law, the preparations are already happening every day by Hamas in the south and Hezbollah in the north, both with Iranian backing. When the next round of fighting breaks out, the analysis and the reporting shouldn't start with the first Israeli strike, but with what's happening on the ground right now. Too often in the past, the media has placed the blame at our doorstep despite clear evidence. Don't wait until the next operation. Go down to the Gaza border now and hear firsthand from the people living there about the digging noises. Go to the northern border now and hear from the IDF about Hezbollah's preparations for war. Yet, it isn't enough for Israel to respond, we also have to initiate. Here is simple. Israel doesn't want to absorb 3.5 million Palestinians. It is time to separate and guarantee our future as a Jewish and a democratic state. Yet a Palestinian state will only come about through an agreement. Terrorism and international pressure will not move us towards such an agreement. The perceived wisdom today is that peace between Israel and the Palestinians is not possible. Some believe the point of no return is past. Others are waiting for a change in circumstances or change in leadership. The underlying assumption might seem to make sense, but this passive approach to our destiny is misguided and dangerous. We need an approach based on pragmatism and genuine security for both sides. The answer is separation, as decisively as possible. Yet we need to make a distinction between the civilian level and the military level. On the civilian level, separation must be sharp and clear. On the military level, the Israeli Defense Force must retain the right to operate anywhere, just as it is today. The security coordination which exists today and allows the IDF to act across the West Bank must continue even after the separation. The Palestinian Authority will shout and claim that this is a breach of their sovereignty, but they know it is also in their own interest. If not for such coordination, Hamas will rise to power in the West Bank in the same way it did in Gaza. We will not allow this. And it is also the PA's worst nightmare. We cannot allow a terrorist state at our border. We cannot allow a repeat of the process after the disengagement from Gaza. Finally, we must work to rebuild our relationship with the international community and especially our closest ally, the United States. Rebuilding our foreign relations is based on two things: hard work and clear message. The world has to know exactly what we want, and we have to invest time and energy into diplomacy. There is lots more on the agenda, and we are at the start of a very busy week, so I leave it there and I'll take your questions now. Thank you very much.
Mr. Lipid, you stressed the security coordination with the AP is still going on. I wonder what's your evaluation of the role being played by President Abbas? The double discourse, maybe we can say on one hand, very strong and problematic statements, but apparently are perceived as incitement by the youth in Palestinian territories as well. On the other hand, these maintenance of the security coordination.
Well, I think you've described this in a very precise way. He's playing a dangerous game. I mentioned when I started the stabbing and killing of a woman by the name of Yאיר in the West Bank. The mother of 6, 2 of them, she was also a foster family. And the young terrorist who killed her was captured. And he said in his investigation that what influenced him to murder her was the incitement he saw on Palestinian television. This is led by the PA. This cannot be, this is authorized. So they're playing a very dangerous game, provoking terror, backing terror, calling squares and schools after what they call shaheeds and we call just plain terrorists on one hand, and for their own reasons maintaining the coordination. They're not maintaining the security coordination with Israel for the good of their hearts. They're doing this because this is the only way of keeping the PA in power in the West Bank. So this is it's not even a double standard. This is not having a standard at all, and should be stopped. This kind of incitement, and you know what? The EU and the UN and all those bodies who are financing the PA can and must go to the PA and say, you know what? We don't want to give money to the kind of regime that incite for murder and terrorism. So there's a place for Europe and the UN as well in this story.
You were talking about a regional summit at the beginning of
Yes.
the separation. Who will take part? Because if you look around, let's take a partner like Turkey in the past concerning Gaza. It takes years to get closer. There are almost no contacts between Israel and Jordan, which should be a good partner. It's still very difficult to get direct contacts with Egypt, which would be closer to Israel. So who will participate in the end? Everybody's talking about a summit. Even Netanyahu would like to increase cooperation with those partners, but nobody's coming forward from the other side.
Well, I'm not sure this is true. I know there will be no sorts of cooperation or dealing as long as there's nothing on the table, or as long as people don't notice a genuine will to go forward. But once there is a genuine will to go forward, they will come. We've seen this in the past, and right now there's nothing on the table. While there's nothing on the table, of course, there's the kind of relations we have in the region are worsening. But when a true, genuine initiative is going to be on the table, of course they will come. I'll give you an example. Just shortly after I published the initiative in last September, I met in New York with Turkiya Faisal, who used to be the Saudi Minister of Intelligence and then the ambassador in the United States, and we discussed the initiative. And in the end of the meeting, I said to him, so I gather this meeting is confidential. He said, no, we want people to know that we're game. And it's going to be the same with the Egyptians, with the Jordanians, and with the Gulf countries. It is, if you even look at the kind of coalitions that are being formed for the war in Yemen, and the 34 countries that were gathered in the Saudi coalition against terror, whatever that means, we don't know yet. It only comes to show that when you have a genuine initiative on the table, gathering the players around the table is not the problem.
Thank you. Luke Baker from Reuters. I wanted to pick up on the comments by U.S. Ambassador Shapiro last week, where he sort of suggested there were double standards of law in the West Bank. Do you have any sympathy with the comments he made? And given those comments, do you detect a shift in U.S. sort of positioning towards Israel, given, for example, that the State Department has supported the EU in its measures?
Yeah, well, let me say, Ambassador Shapiro is a dear friend to Israel. Is a very positive force in the Israeli-American relations, and the kind of bad rap he got in this last week is unjust. Having said that, I think he's wrong about what he said. Why? Because I think there is, in every country, there is a difference in the way you handle terror and in the way you handle people who break the law. So yes, there are settlers in the West Bank who are breaking the law, and they should be dealt in the way law-abiding nations are dealing with people who break the law. On the other hand, there is terror. In the United States, where the ambassador is coming from, there's a different set of rules to terror and to breaking the law, and it's the same here in Israel. When settlers has acted, has committed terror attacks, they were dealt with like terrorists. Look at the Duma events and the arrests and the kind of inquiries that were made after the arrests. So when there is terror, it's going to be dealt like terror. When it's breaking the law, it's going to be dealt like felonies. So I think the ambassador was just wrong in interpreting what is going on the ground.
And on the other point, whether there's some shift in the US.
Yes.
Given the support.
I think there is, let me put it this way, I'm worried about the kind of discourse that has been going on in the past couple of years between the American administration and the Israeli government. This is not come to say that this is not, the United States is and hopefully always will be our closest ally. And this should be Israel's #1 priority to maintain these relations. And we should work harder on doing so. Everything else I will say on the matter will be, I'm at the risk of being interpreted as criticizing my government to the foreign media, which I'm not going to do.
Michael from Al-Jazeera. You just said that you're going to run for the Prime Minister office the next election, and you talked about Iran. I can't see the differences between your talks and Netanyahu's talks about all the general lines. Can you explain what's the differences? And the other question, if may we see you both running together, maybe? Those words.
I see. I have many disagreements with the Prime Minister. Iran is not one of them. I think the agreement that was signed is a bad agreement. I participated in the joint effort of coalition and opposition in Israel during this last year, trying to explain the world that there's something that this agreement is the wrong agreement, and on this I just agree. I happen to agree with him. I think the majority of the Israeli political arena are on agreement on the matter. It doesn't change the fact that we have an ocean of disagreements between us on domestic issues and international issues, on other issues, and that's the difference between the right. In Israel, we have the right, we have the center, and we have the left. The prime minister is in the right. I'm in the center. There's a difference between us and the left, and there's a difference between us and the right, and this is the nature of politics, and this is why people are running for elections. So there's no way we will run either with Likud or with Labour. We're going to run by ourselves in the next election.
My question is very similar. Inge Günther, Berliner Zeitung and Frankfurter Rundschau. But you announced already that you would like to run for prime minister. But what would you be your favorite partners? More to the left, more to the right, or is it just as long? Or don't you care as long as you have to get the majority?
Well, it's not that I don't care. It's just that it's very, very premature. I need to win first, and then we will build the coalition. So there's a process. And everything I will say now, we don't even know when the election day is due, will be not only premature but also very unprofessional on my behalf. So, of course, we're not boycotting anyone. We are not saying that anyone is unsuitable. One of the advantages of being a centrist party is that you can talk to right and to your left the same way. If you look at the last election here in Israel, Labour, us, Kahlon's party, and Likud altogether is 75 seats, which is more than 80% of the Jewish vote. So I think the Israeli center right, center left is pretty big, and many coalitions can be gathered. We'll see.
Rainer Schmidt, freelance for German-speaking press. Mr. Lapid, if I understood you correct, the core of your plan is separation. That reminds me on some arguments before the disengagement. So what is the difference between your plan and disengagement, and what gives you the confidence that you will succeed and that Hamas doesn't take over the areas that Israel is going to live?
First of all, there's no confidence in the Middle East to begin with. But the disengagement was a unilateral step. We have decided to withdraw from Gaza. While mentioning it, let me remind you as well that we did everything the world has ever asked us to do. We withdrew, we left, 3,000 greenhouses for the Palestinians to start building an economy from. Instead, they demolished everything and built terror tunnels and start shooting at our people. So they are not to be trusted. And therefore, I'm against anything that is unilateral. I'm saying we need to separate from the Palestinians through an agreement, and this agreement should include the continuation of the security coordination we have now with the PAA in order to prevent in all costs the possibility of the rise of Hamas in the West Bank, because Hamas is a terror organization and we will not allow a terror state on our western borders.
I'm Mike Smith from AFP. I wonder what your position is on the NGO bill that I think will be voted on today. And more broadly, if you're concerned about what some see as a sort of witch hunt from the right against what a lot of people see as legitimate rights organizations and activists of that kind.
Yeah, well, I'm going to vote against the NGO bill. But let me start by saying I resent the fact that foreign governments are interfering in our most sensitive and explosive political issues using their money. I cannot imagine Israel trying to put money into interfering, I don't know, with the dispute over abortions in the United States or anything that is that explosive. And the fact that the Swedes or the Danes are allowing themselves through governmental money to try and influence Israeli politics is unacceptable to me and to many other Israelis. And then again, I'm going to vote against it mostly because of the way this bill is being interpreted, meaning the fact that people feel that Israel wants to call itself a democracy without paying the price of democracy. And I think the world should know, especially in times like this, that our international isolation seems to be growing, that we're going to stay and remain this vibrant democracy that we have always been, understanding that this comes with a price. So we're going to vote against this. But let me tell you, there is, you cannot just brush away what the people who have decided, who have put this bill on the table are saying about the kind of interference in our internal problems by other governments. There's a problem there, but we're going to vote against it.
You agree with the terms, but it's more the form?
No, I agree with the fact that this is pointing a problem. I disagree with the way they're trying to solve it. I think people should know this is basically a transparency law, and I think people should know if other governments are trying to get involved in our political issues. On the other hand, the way they're doing it and the timing they're doing it, and while the entire country is under attack, and there is always the translation of our international stature and the Israeli the national security. So it's not a good idea right now, but I'm telling you, it's just the one thing, and I'm voting against it. I just wanted to add the fact that there's something very unacceptable in the way those NGOs are being financed by other governments.
What about the second part, about more broadly, so that, people are calling it sort of from the right, you're seeing this kind of, what they call a witch hunt against some of the rights groups?
Well, it's interesting. These NGOs have dedicated their lives, all the life work to criticism, and they do not seem to respond very well when somebody is criticizing them. I think in the name of free speech, we are also allowed to say that we think sometimes something is really wrong in the activity of organizations like Breaking the Silence and others. So I think this kind of dialogue and criticism is part of the same democracy they claim to pretend.
Chatide for Focus News magazine in Germany. My question is, as you say already, you want to run for prime minister. How solid do you see this government for the moment?
Well, it's a question for you to answer. I'm not a political commentator anymore. Yes, I have. It's just a bet, but the popular notion in the political arena saying this government will fall sometimes later this year. MK Lieberman have said it. I said it before. We think towards the end of the year. Too many cracks. The instability. Things that are happening, but there's no way of telling. This is just one of those guesses. It's an educated guess, nothing more than that.
Thank you. Ana Cárdenas from the Spanish news agency EFE. You said that your proposal is complete separation in the civilian level, but keeping the ability of the Israeli army to keep operating in West Bank. The Palestinians, Abbas himself has very clearly said that he will not accept any military presence from Israel in their territory. And you have already a no on the table. And also, do you really expect the Arab countries to gather all together around a proposal that implies keeping a military, what they would consider a military occupation of the West Bank? Thank you.
Well, I think every suggestion that was made, the latest was Secretary Kerry's framework, included in it the fact that there's going to be security measures which will have benchmarks. And these benchmarks will not only be considered by timetable, but also by the kind of execution these benchmarks will have. And we will need a long-term, yes, we will need a long-term security presence in the West Bank, even after there will be a two-state solution. And I will not buy, you're saying there's a no on the table, there's so many no's on this table from both sides. Excuse me for not taking it very seriously. It's in the PA's and President Abbas's, or whoever inherits him, best interests. Otherwise, they will have, look at what happened in Gaza. When Israel withdrew from Gaza, the PA was in control of Gaza. And a year later, they were thrown from rooftops and were shot and were chased away from Gaza. They don't want this to happen again in the West Bank. And they understand that the only thing that is standing between them and being shot dead in the streets is the Israeli Defense Forces. And therefore, it's in their best interest to maintain the security coordination. And people tend to do what's in their best interest. So I'm not saying this for the level of being just, but from practical level, I think this is doable.
Hi, Yardena Schwartz, MSNBC. My question is a bit similar to a question that was asked earlier in relation to how you speak about Iran and how what you say seems very similar to the same things that Netanyahu says on the topic. But it seems that almost everything you're saying it kind of falls in line with things he says. And I'm just wondering, at least what you're saying here today in terms of the NGO bill, you essentially do support it. It's just the timing that you disagree with. You
No,
said,
I said I'm going to vote against it. Okay.
But you agree. You said you agree with that they should that there should be transparency in the money from foreign governments. How would you describe your differences with him? Is it just the alignment with the religious or with the right? I mean, with the with the religious parties, or?
Well, if I may, let me disagree with your premise. There's a word of difference. The example you just gave, it's a bill that has been put out by the government, and we're going to vote against it, explaining this contributes to the international isolation of Israel caused by this government. Let me tell you something about the aesthetics of it all, okay? I'm standing here, I'm speaking in English to the international media. I made it into a rule long time ago. Under these circumstances, or when I'm foreign soil, I'm very careful about criticizing the legitimate government of Israel. So the kind of nuance you are looking for is not there. And yet there's, as I was saying, an ocean of differences between us and this government. The fact that we're saying a separation from the Palestinians under the two-state solution. Right now, I think the only person in the current government that is still talking about the two-state solution is the Prime Minister himself. The entire government is saying it is not going to happen. On domestic issues, which is irrelevant to this room, there's a word of differences. And there's also something that every Israeli feel about the kind of unification. We need to unify the Israeli society, and this is part of the message we've been bringing to the table in these last 3 or 4 years. That has to do with whether we're going towards a more tribal society, or we're going to find a way of living together here in a law-abiding country. So maybe these are the things. I mean, I don't think there are many born Israelis who have to think about the differences between us and Likud and Netanyahu's Likud. It's a legit question. I'm not blaming you, of course, of not knowing your trade. I'm just telling you, I think what I'm saying here is subjected to the time and the place.
Paul Sanchez, freelance. I would like to know your thoughts on Israel's current marriage between state and church. And by church, I mean the Rabbanut.
Yeah.
Whether it should be reviewed, and the social issues that are tied to it, such as civil marriage, transportation on Shabbat, etc.
Yeah, my party has already put on the Knesset's table a civil marriage bill. We think there should be, we should equalize all streams of Judaism in Israel. There's no way of full separation between religion, it's not church and state, it's religion and state here in Israel, because this is the Jewish state, and this is the only Jewish state, and should remain so. We have no other place to go to, and therefore we should maintain the Jewish identity of our country. There is a lot of room for separation between religion and politics, which harms, to my view, both religion and politics. And I think every religious bill that was passed in Knesset has failed miserably due to the fact that something unnatural about the whole concept of people who are being ordered by the state to, I mean, in a democratic country. It happens in countries like Iran. In a democratic country, the fact that you are ordered to have faith doesn't make any sense. So we need to have a better separation between religion and politics. We need to have people who are reform or conservative should know that their rabbis, weddings, synagogues are legitimate in this country the same way the Orthodox is. So it needs to stay a Jewish state, but not under the ruling of one very narrow stream of Judaism.
We're ready to wrap up. Anybody? Okay, Isabel, last one.
Okay, thanks. Isabel Kirshner, New York Times.
Yes.
What is your position on Jerusalem? Where does that fit in your vision for separation? Are you prepared to talk about a Palestinian capital of some sort in East Jerusalem? And second question, after the election before the last one, when you became finance minister, you said in I think it was a Channel 2 interview, that you saw yourself as the next prime minister, and you were criticized, and you stepped back a bit and I think said it was a mistake, perhaps premature. What's changed?
Okay. Two very good questions. Actually, on the first question, I'm without permission, I'm using you as an example, because I've been saying for a long time now that the mistake the Israeli left has always made about the more explosive issues like Jerusalem is negotiating with the New York Times instead of negotiating with those you need to negotiate with. Jerusalem is not to be divided. This is part of my platform. This is part of my party's platform. We understand, and we have said that clearly, that this will come with a price. We will have to pay a price on other issues. But this is it is something you negotiate, hopefully in the end of the negotiation with the people you need to negotiate with, not here. It's just irresponsible to respond. On the issue of me declaring, there's a question of how, not only of what. After the 2013 election, in the same day after the results were published, and we were all drunk in so many ways, somebody stick a microphone to my mouth and says, "Are you going to be the next prime minister?" And I said, "Yes, I'm going to be the next prime minister." And of course, this was perceived, and rightly so, like arrogant beyond belief, because this is not my call. This is the people's call. And I've learned a lesson in modesty. And what I'm saying now is I'm presenting my candidacy to being the next prime minister of Israel, and the people will decide whether or not they want to. Right now, I'm polling second to Prime Minister Netanyahu. So probably it's going to be me and him against me. And yet, if you want to be prime minister, the one thing you have to know how to do is how to make mistakes, admit the fact that you made a mistake, and go on. And this is what I'm doing right now. Thank you.